Cursed for 30 years. Only a human could break the spell. Aaron. James had seen a lot of weird in his 35 years of life, 15 of those spent as an Alliance Marine, fighting in the Orion conflict had exposed him to the strangest corners of the known universe. But nothing, absolutely, nothing had prepared him for what he was about to experience in the Grand Hall of Artifacts on the Celestia primed the massive dome chamber stretched before him, its polished obsidian floors. Reflecting the soft blue glow of hovering light orbs, Aaron adjusted his gray-armored vest, the only remnant of his military past he still wore, leaving his muscular arms bare in the climate controlled environment. His shaved head and the scar running down his left cheek gave him the look of a man you didn't want to mess with, which coincidentally was exactly the reputation he'd cultivated as an interstellar adventurer. For hire, quite impressive, isn't it, human? Said a Ray voice beside her. The tour guide, a thin blue-skinned Celestine with forearms and bulbous eyes, gestured toward the collection of statues lining the hall. These pieces represent the finest examples of living art from across the 12 systems. Aaron grunted noncommittally. He wasn't here for a damn art tour. The job was simple: retrieve a data crystal from a contact who'd chosen this public venue for the exchange. The less attention he drew, the better. This section contains our most prized possessions. The guide continued, oblivious to Aaron's disinterest. Many of these statues date back to the Galactic Reformation, nearly 3 centuries ago. That's when he saw her. Among the dozens of stone and metal figures stood one that seemed different, a humanoid female, form carved from what appeared to be pale green stone with faint purple undertones. Unlike the other statues, which were clearly artistic interpretations, this one possessed an uncanny realism, from the subtle curve of her lips to the delicate fingers that seemed poised to reach out. Aaron stopped, transfixed. Something about her called to him. "Ah, I see you've noticed our mysterious beauty," the guide said, following Aaron's gaze. A curious piece. No record of its creator exists in our archives, some say. It simply appeared in the palace one day 30 years ago. Aaron stepped closer, ignoring the guide's warning about maintaining distance from the exhibits. The statue's face was hauntingly beautiful: high cheekbones, a straight nose, and eyes that, despite being stone, seemed to hold a spark of awareness. "There's a local legend," the guide whispered, suddenly conspiratorial. "They say she was once alive, a political rival of Lord Vexus, our current High Chancellor. The story goes that she was transformed into stone through forbidden magic as punishment for challenging his rise to power." Sounds like, Aaron replied, but couldn't tear his eyes away. "Perhaps, but it's curious that Lord Vexus himself ordered this statue to be displayed prominently, isn't it? As if he wants everyone to see his triumph." Something clicked in Aaron's mind. The data crystal he was supposed to retrieve supposedly contained evidence of corruption in the Celestian government. Yeah, was this connected? The guide moved on, leading the rest of the tour group to the next exhibit, but Aaron remained, studying the statue's face. Those eyes, they seemed to be pleading. Acting on an impulse he couldn't explain, Aaron glanced around to ensure no one was watching, then reached out and touched the statue's outstretched hand. The stone felt warm, unnaturally so, and then beneath his fingers it began to crack. "Holy," Aaron whispered, stepping back as hairline fractures spread across the statue's surface. A faint glow emanated from within, pulsing like a heartbeat. The cracks widened, pieces of stone falling away to reveal smooth violet skin. Underneath, the transformation accelerated, chunks of the stone shell crumbling to the floor as the figure beneath was revealed saw a living, breathing woman with luminous lilac eyes and flowing silver hair that ccad down her naked body. She gasped, drawing her First breath in what must have been decades, and stumbled forward. Aaron caught her before she could fall. Wrapping his arms around her trembling form, she began again, her voice raspy. From disuse, who are you? Before Aaron could answer, alarms blared throughout the hall. Security drones descended from ceiling panels, their targeting systems locking onto the pair. Aaron muttered, "I think we need to get out of here." The woman's eyes widened as she looked around, recognition dawning on her face. This is the royal palace. How long have I been? 30 years, according to the guide, Aaron said, already pulling off his vest to wrap around her naked form. And I'm guessing whoever put you here isn't going to be happy or free. Her expression hardened. Vexus, he did this to me, the High Chancellor. Well, that complicates things. Aaron glanced at the approaching security drones. Can you run? She nodded, determination replacing confusion. I've been frozen, not dead. My body remembers. Good. Aaron grabbed her hand. Because we're about to give these palace guards one hell of a workout. They sprinted toward the nearest exit as the first energy blast scorched the floor where they'd been standing moments before. The woman moved with surprising grace for someone who'd been a statue for 3 decades, matching Aaron's stride. For stride, I'm Aaron James, by the way he shouted as they rounded a corner. Sarah, she replied, her bare feet slapping against the polished floor. Sarah Vex, former royal advisor, and apparently Vexus, his greatest mistake. Aaron grinned, despite the danger. Well, Sarah Vix, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, or something more, whispered a voice in the back of his mind as they burst through the palace doors into the blinding light of Celestia Prime's twin suns. The spaceport of Celestia Prime gleamed like a diamond under the twin suns, its crystalline docking towers stretching toward the cloudless azure sky. Aaron and Sarah crouched behind a cargo container, both breathing heavily from their sprint across the palace grounds. My ship's in orbit, Aaron whispered, peering around the edge of their cover. We need to, Commander, something that'll get us there. Sarah clutched Aaron's vest tighter around her body, the garment barely covering her essentials. Her silver hair shimmered with an almost metallic quality in the sunlight, drawing more than a few curious glances from passers by. There, she said, pointing to a sleek shuttle with minimal security. That's a diplomatic courier, fast and well shielded. Aaron raised an eyebrow. You recognize ship models after 30 years. The design principles haven't changed much, Sarah replied with a hint of a smile. Besides, I was the royal technology advisor before Vexus. Before he did this to me, a patrol of guards marched past their hiding spot, and Aaron instinctively pulled Sarah closer against his chest. Her skin felt warm against his, her scent unexpectedly familiar, like rain-soaked earth, and something sweeter he couldn't place. Sorry, he muttered, suddenly aware of their proximity. Sarah didn't pull away. Don't be, she said softly. You've done nothing but help me. Since I awakened. Their eyes met, and Aaron felt something stir within him. A connection that transcended the bizarre circumstances of their meeting. For a moment, the chaos around them faded away. A blaring alarm shattered the moment. Attention, all personnel detain the human male and the fugitive. Lethal force authorized, Aaron growled. Covers blown. We run on 3. Sarah nodded, determination hardening her delicate features. 1, 2. Aaron continued his hand, finding hers. 3, they said in unison, bolting from their hiding place toward the diplomatic shuttle. They weave through the crowded spaceport, dodging civilians in security. Alike, Sarah moved with surprising agility, despite her bare feet keeping pace with Aaron's military train stride. Can you fly this thing? Aaron asked as they reached the shuttle access ramp. Better than you can, I'd wager, Sarah replied with unexpected playfulness. Royal technology advisor, remember? Aaron grinned, despite the danger. I'll handle security. You handle the controls, he slammed his fist against the external access panel, then pried open the maintenance hatch beneath it, a quick cross-whirring of the security circuits, a trick he'd learned during a particularly desperate mission on Titan, and the shuttle's doors hissed open. They rushed inside Sarah, immediately taking the pilot's seat, while Aaron sealed the entrance behind them. They're going to lock down the launch bay, Sarah said, her fingers dancing across the control interface. With practiced ease, systems are different, but the fundamentals haven't changed. Aaron took the co-pilot's chair, impressed by how quickly she adapted to the modern technology. How long until we're airborne? 30 seconds for pre-flight, another 15. To break atmosphere. She glanced at him, a mischievous glint in her lilac eyes, assuming you don't mind a few G-forces. Wouldn't be the first time I've been pressed against my seat, Aaron replied, with a smirk. Sarah's lips curved upward. I'll keep that in mind. The shuttle hummed to life, its engines glowing with building energy. Outside, security forces were surrounding the vessel, weapons drawn. Hang on, Sarah warned, then punched the thrusters. The shuttle shot forward, crashing through the magnetic containment field and into open air. Aaron was indeed pressed back into his seat as Sarah executed a near vertical climb, the spaceport rapidly shrinking beneath them. Pursuit craft launching, Aaron reported, checking the rear sensors. 305 interceptors. Let them come, Sarah said with fierce confidence. This diplomatic model has enhanced shields. They won't risk destroying it. Too many political implications. The shuttle bucked as the first warning shots streaked past them. Sarah responded with a series of evasive maneuvers that had Aaron gripping his armrests. Where did you learn to fly like this? He asked, genuinely impressed. I wasn't always a royal advisor, she replied cryptically. Before that I was, let's just say I had a more adventurous career. The atmosphere thinned around them, the blue sky darkening to the star-speckled blackness of space. Aaron felt the artificial gravity engage as they left Celestia Prime's. Pull your ship, Sarah asked, her focus still on evading their pursuers. The Nomad, Aaron replied, docked at orbital station Gamma 3. Sending coordinates to your nav system. Now, as the information transferred, their hands brushed across the console. Despite the tension of the moment, Aaron felt that same electric connection. Sarah's eyes flickered to his, acknowledging the sensation. I feel it too, she said quietly. This pull between us, is it normal for your species? Aaron swallowed hard. Not exactly normal. No. A blast rocked the shuttle, interrupting the moment. Shields at 70%, Sarah reported, returning to business. We need to reach your ship soon. The orbital station came into view, a massive wheel-shaped structure rotating serenely against the backdrop of space. Dozens of vessels were docked along its spokes, including Aaron's beloved Nomad, a modified light freighter that had seen him through countless tight spots there. She is, Aaron said with pride, docking bay 42. Sarah guided their stolen shuttle toward the station, the pursuing interceptor still hot on their tail. They're transmitting to the station, Aaron warned, monitoring communications, ordering them to lock down all bays. Then we don't dock, Sarah decided. We'll have to. Eva, Aaron stared at her. In your condition with no suit, my speed can survive vacuum exposure for short periods, she explained, a trait that came in handy during my previous career. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? Aaron said with admiration. Sarah's expression softened momentarily. You have no idea. She brought the shuttle alongside the Nomad, matching its velocity perfectly. Only a few meters of open space separated the two vessels. Ready? She asked, initiating the shuttle's emergency decompression sequence. Aaron nodded, moving to the airlock. Stay close to me. I don't plan to let go, Sarah replied, her hand finding his again as the airlock opened to the void of space. Aaron felt Sir's grip tighten together. They leaped across the gap between ships. The stars wheeling around them in silent witness to their escape, for those brief, breathless moments, suspended between. Vessels with nothing but the vastness of space surrounding them, Aaron felt more alive than he had in years, and from the exhilarated look in Sarah's eyes, as they tumbled through the Nomad's airlock, she felt exactly the same way the Nomad hummed quietly as it drifted through the vast emptiness of space, its hyperdrive cooling after the emergency jump that had taken them safely away from Celestia Prime. Aaron leaned against the doorframe of the ship's small galley, watching as Sarah cautiously examined a self-heating food packet. It's not gourmet, he said apologetically, but it'll keep you going. KN Sarah looked up, her lilac eyes reflecting the soft cabin lights. She changed into some spare clothes. Aaron had found a simple gray jumpsuit that somehow managed to look elegant on her. Slender frame, her silver hair was pulled back in a loose braid that trailed down her back after 30 years as stone even. Protein paste would taste like a royal feast, she replied with a small smile. She pressed the activation tab on the packet, watching with childlike fascination as it began to steam. The technology is different than I remember. Aaron slid into the seat across from her. I can't imagine what that's like, waking up to find the world has moved on without you. Sarah's expression grew distant. It's like stepping into a dream where everything is almost right, but not quite. She took a tentative bite of the food, her eyes widening slightly at the taste. Even flavors seem more intense now. Your sense is readjusting, perhaps. She studied him openly, curiosity evident in her gaze, or perhaps it's simply that everything feels more vivid. When you've been trapped in darkness for so long, there was something in the way she looked at him, a directness that was both disarming and thrilling. Aaron had encountered many species in his travels, but none that regarded him with such unfiltered interest. Is it customary for humans to avert their eyes when being observed? Sarah asked, noticing his slight discomfort. Aaron chuckled. Usually, yeah, prolonged eye contact can feel intimate, she repeated, testing the word. Among my people, the Vix visual connection is the foundation of trust. To look away would suggest deception. Cultural differences, Aaron said with a shrug. First rule of interspecies relations, never assume. And what other rules govern these interspecies relations? Sarah asked, a playful lilt entering her voice. Aaron felt heat rise to his face. That's a complicated question, is it? She reached across the table, her violet fingers lightly brushing against his hand. The way your pulse quickens when I touch you seems rather straightforward. The directness caught him off guard. You can feel that my people are sensitive to bioelectrical fields, she explained. Your energy calls to me has, since the moment you freed me. Aaron swallowed hard. That explains a few things. Does it make you uncomfortable? She asked, genuine concern in her voice. No, he answered honestly. Just caught off guard. On Earth, we usually dance around attraction for a while before acknowledging it. Sarah's laughter was like music, bright and clear. How inefficient the Vix believe life is too precious to waste on uncertainty. If there is a connection, why not explore it? Hard to argue with that logic, Aaron admitted, finding himself drawn to her refreshing perspective. A proximity alarm suddenly blared through the ship, shattering the moment Aaron was on his feet. Instantly rushing to the cockpit with Sarah close behind patrol vessel, he muttered, checking the scanner's routine sweep, not specifically looking for us. But we can't risk being identified. Sarah slid into the co-pilot seat, studying Thial controls with intense focus. These interfaces are similar to what I remember, but more integrated. Her fingers hovered uncertainly over the panels here. Aaron said, guiding her hand to the right section. Defensive systems are routed through here now. the simple contact his hand over hers sent a jolt of awareness. Through them both for a moment, they froze. The patrol ship temporarily forgotten your touch, Sarah whispered it. Resonates differently than my people's. Aaron found himself leaning closer, different, how warmer, more grounding her. Eyes met his pupils, dilating slightly. When you freed me from the stone, it was like being pulled from a bottomless ocean into sunlight. The patrol ship changed course, moving away from their position. The alarm silenced, but neither of them moved. I've never felt anything like this, Aaron admitted. It's like there's an electrical current running between us. For my people, such a connection is rare and valued, Sarah said softly. We call it Inara, the recognition of compatible energies. And what happens with this Inara? Sarah's lips curved into a smile that made Aaron's heart race. Traditionally, it would be explored through a ritual of energy exchange. That sounds intriguing, Aaron said, his voice dropping lower. It can be quite intense, she replied, leaning incrementally closer. The ship's computer chose that moment to announce hyperdrive recalibration, complete, awaiting coordinates for next jump. Aaron closed his eyes briefly, exhaling slowly. Always something, he muttered. Sarah's laughter broke the tension. Perhaps your ship has Vic's sensibilities about timing. If that's the case, it needs to learn some manners, Aaron grumbled, turning to input coordinates as he worked. Sarah watched his movements with undisguised interest. You operate this vessel alone, no crew? Just me, Aaron confirmed. Easier that way, no one to argue with about destinations or jobs, or to interrupt moments, Sarah added with a knowing smile. Aaron grinned. Despite himself, there is that advantage. Where are we going? She asked, studying the star chart that appeared on the main display. Outpost Helios, small trading station in neutral space. We can resupply, get you some proper clothes, and figure out our next move. He hesitated. That is, if you want to stick together. Sarah regarded him seriously. You freed me, protected me, and now you offer to help me navigate this new reality. Where else would I go? I just don't want you to feel obligated. Aaron James, she said, using his full name for the first time among the Vic's. Deb is acknowledged, but never allowed to become a chain. I stay because I choose to, not because I must. And the sincerity in her voice touched something in him good to know. Besides, as she added with a mischievous glint returning to her eyes, I'm quite curious to explore the sonara between us. Aren't you? Before Aaron could respond, the ship lurched slightly as it entered hyperspace, the stars stretching into brilliant streaks around them. The sudden movement sent Sarah falling forward, and Aaron caught her instinctively there, bodies pressing together. As the ship stabilized for a breathless moment, they remained that way, her hands braced against his chest, his arms around her waist, faces inches apart. I believe, Sarah whispered, this is what humans call perfect timing. And as their lips met in that first tentative kiss, Aaron couldn't help but agree. Outpost Helios hung in space like a tarnished coin, its weathered metal exterior illuminated by the distant red dwarf star it orbited. The Nomad docked with a metallic clunk, magnetic clamps securing it to one of the stations, many extended arms. Not exactly the royal palace, Aaron commented as they stepped through the airlock into the bustling trading post. Sarah took in the chaotic scene with wide eyes, merchants hawking wares from a dozen systems, repair droids scuttling between ships, and the diverse array of species mingling in the central concourse. Her hand found Aaron's instinctively. It's overwhelming, she admitted, the sensory input after so much nothingness. Aaron gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Stay close. This place operates on its own rule. They navigated through the crowded marketplace, where Sarah marveled at technologies that hadn't existed before her imprisonment. At a clothing stall, Aaron purchased her a proper outfit, a fitted jumpsuit in the deep blue with silver accents that complemented her unique coloring. How do I look? She asked, emerging from the Changing area, Erin appreciative gaze traveled from her silver hair down to her boots like someone who definitely wasn't a statue yesterday. Sarah's laughter turn, heads nearby your species. Has a gift for understatement. As they continued through the market, Sarah suddenly froze, her eyes fixed on a booth displaying neural interface devices. Erin, she whispered urgently, that technology, it's VIX in origin. He followed her gaze to the sleek silver devices, memory extractors, yes, but modified. She approached the booth cautiously. These were experimental. When I was before the merchant, a six-armed insectoid clicked excitedly at their interest. Rare, fine psychometric resonators from the VIX collective. Very valuable, very powerful. How did you acquire these? Sarah asked, sharply. Salvage, writes the merchant. Defensively, from abandoned VIX research vessel. All legal, all documented. Erin noticed Sarah's hands, trembling slightly. What is it? He asked quietly. These devices were designed to recover lost memories, she explained, to heal trauma victims, but they could potentially extract what you experienced as a statue. Erin finished, understanding dawning precisely, her lilac eyes locked with his. I was conscious, Erin, trapped, but aware for 30 years. The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. Damn. He breathed. That's torture, she finished simply. But what I witnessed during those years, the conversations held before an inanimate object, could be valuable. Before they could negotiate with the merchant, a commotion erupted at the far end of the marketplace. Security officers were checking identifications, and with them stood a figure whose mere presence caused the crowd toward a tall chrome armored bounty hunter. That's a Chronos Guild tracker, Erin muttered, pulling Sarah behind a pillar. Elite bounty hunters, someone's put a serious price on our heads. Vexus works quickly, Sarah observed grimly. Erin glanced between the security checkpoint and the neural devices. We need that memory tech, and we need to get off the station now. I can create a diversion. Sarah offered. My bioelectrical sensitivity works both ways. I can disrupt systems, temporarily too risky, Erin countered. I've got a better idea. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear as he outlined his plan. The proximity sent a shiver down Sarah's spine that had nothing to do with danger, and everything to do with the growing tension between them. That's either brilliant or suicidal, she whispered back, her breath warm against his neck. Story of my life, Erin replied with a Rajish grin. They split up, Erin approaching the merchant while Sar circled around to a control panel near the security checkpoint. On Erin's signal, a casual adjustment of his collar, Sarah placed her palm against the panel, closing her eyes. Concentration. The station lights flickered momentarily as Sarah channeled her bioelectrical energy into the system. While alarms blared, and the security team rushed toward the supposed breach, leaving the bounty hunter momentarily isolated. Aeon seized the opportunity, slipping the merchant a credit ship and grabbing the neural device as chaos erupted. He rejoined Sarah, who was already moving toward their escape route. Impressive trick, he said as they ducked into a maintenance corridor. A basic VIX ability, she replied, modestly, though I'm rusty. After 3 decades of disuse, they reached a junction where the corridor split in 3 directions. Erin hesitated, but Sarah tugged him decisively to the right. I can sense the power conduits, she explained. This way leads back to the docking bay. As they rounded the corner, they collided with a station worker who dropped his tools in surprise. Before he could raise an alarm, Sarah stepped forward, placing her hands on either side of his face. Sleep, she commanded, and the worker's eyes rolled back as he slumped to the floor. Erin stared at her in astonishment. Another VIX trick you forgot to mention. Mental suggestion, Sarah explained as they continued running. Only works on receptive minds. He'll wake in an hour with no memory of us. They reached the docking bay, just as the station-wide alert system announced a lockdown. Aaron overrode the Nomad's airlock, and they tumbled inside breathless and exhilarated as the ship disengaged from the station, evading the security vessels. With a series of evasive maneuvers, Sarah examined the neural device with trembling fingers. "Are you sure about this?" Aaron asked, setting the autopilot once they were clear, reliving those memories. "I need to know what Vexus was planning," she insisted, "and why he kept me as a trophy for so long in the privacy of the ship's small medical bay." Sarah reclined on the examination couch, the neural interface positioned at her temples. Aaron stood beside her, concern evident in his eyes. "I'll be right here," he promised, to be taking her hand. "I know." Her smile was tender. "That's why I can face this." As the device activated, Sarah's eyes closed, her body tensing as the first memories flooded back. Aaron watched anxiously, his thumb tracing soothing circles on the back of her hand. Minutes passed in tense silence before Sarah gasped, her eyes flying open. "The Nexus key," she whispered. "Vexus is searching for the Nexus key." "What's that?" "A theoretical technology that could open gateways between dimensions," she explained urgently. "If weaponized, it could destroy entire systems." "My research. That's why he imprisoned me. I discovered the theoretical framework, but refused to help him weaponize it." Aaron's expression darkened. "And now he's close to completing it," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "I heard him boasting to his advisors just weeks ago. He needs only one final component," which is Sarah met his gaze, fear and determination mingling in her lilac eyes, the blood of a Vix who has transcended physical form. Understanding dawned on Aaron's face. He turned you to stone to transform you. And now he needs me back," Sarah whispered. "Not dead, captured." Aaron's jaw tightened as he helped her remove the neural device. "Well, he's not getting you." The fierce protectiveness in his voice made something flutter in Sarah's chest. Without thinking, she reached up, pulling him down until their foreheads touched. "In Vix culture," she murmured, "a warrior's oath is sealed with more than words." The air between them charged with unspoken promise as Aaron's hands framed her face. "Show me." Dawn's cycle aboard the Nomad found Aaron and Sarah entwined in the captain's quarters, the ambient starlight casting a soft glow over their forms. Sarah's silver hair spilled across Aaron's chest as she traced the scars that mapped his adventures across his skin. "This one?" she asked, fingertips hovering over a jagged mark near his collar bone. "Skirmish on Titan's moons," he replied, his voice a low rumble in the quiet cabin. "Smugglers didn't appreciate my interference in their operation." Sarah smiled, pressing her lips to the scar among the Vix. "Battle marks are considered sacred stories written on the body, and do Vix warriors typically have their stories read so thoroughly?" Ain asked with a playful grin, his hand sliding along the curve of her violet-hued shoulder. "Only by those they trust with their deepest vulnerabilities," she answered, her lilac eyes meeting his with characteristic directness. The night had been a revelation for both of them, a merging of not just bodies, but cultures. Sarah's bioelectrical sensitive ID had created sensations Aaron had never experienced, while his human approach to intimacy had delighted her with its passionate intensity. The ship's communication system chimed, shattering their peaceful interlude. "Incoming transmission," announced the automated voice alliance military channel priority. Alpha. Aaron groaned, reluctantly disentangling himself from Sarah's embrace. "That's Commander Holt. I sent him an encrypted message about Vexus before we got distracted." Sarah's laughter followed him as he pulled on his pants. "Is this typical human timing, or are all species in the universe conspiring against moments of intimacy?" "Universal conspiracy," Aaron confirmed with a wink, tossing her the jumpsuit she discarded hours earlier in the cockpit. Commander Holt's stern face materialized on the view screen. His eyes narrowed at Aaron's disheveled appearance. James, you look like hell good. To see you too, Commander, Aaron replied dryly. Holt's expression remained impassive. Your information about this Nexus key is concerning. If verified, it constitutes a Class 1 threat to Alliance security. It's verified, Aaron assured him. My source is impeccable. Your source being the escaped statue. Holt's skepticism was evident. The same one, with a bounty of 5 million credits on her head. Sarah stepped into view, her composure regal. Despite the circumstances, I am Sarah Vick's former Royal Technology advisor to the Celestian Court and lead researcher on dimensional physics, and yes, Commander. Until recently, I was imprisoned as a statue by the man who now threatens your worlds. Holt's eyebrows rose slightly. The closest he came to showing surprise. The Alliance has no official stance on Celestian internal politics, Miss Vix. This isn't politics, Aaron interjected. Its survival. Vexus has been developing this weapon for decades. He's one component away from completion, a component he believes exists in my transformed blood. Sarah added, my imprisonment wasn't just punishment, it was preparation. Holt was silent for a moment, calculating. The Alliance Council won't authorize intervention without concrete evidence. Then we'll get it for you, Aaron said firmly. How do you propose to do that? Sarah stepped forward. I've been formulating a plan. It's unorthodox. Those are the only kinds that work, Aaron commented. I can temporarily return to stone form, Sarah explained. It's an ancient Vix technique, a meditative state that calcifies the outer body while maintaining consciousness. Aaron turned to her, alarm evident in his expression. You didn't mention this part. I only fully remembered it during the memory extraction, she said apologetically. The Vix used it as a defense mechanism in our evolutionary past. And how does becoming a statue again help us? Hold asked. Vexus needs me alive, but transformed, Sarah explained. If we leak information that I've been recaptured in stone form, he'll personally come to verify it. His ego demands it. Meanwhile, Aeon continued, seeing where she was going. We infiltrate his research facility to gather evidence of the weapon and develop a countermeasure using my scientific knowledge and Aaron's practical skills, Sarah added, with a subtle glance at Aaron that spoke volumes about her newfound appreciation of those skills. Holt's eyes narrowed. This plan has more holes than a Venusian cheese farm, but it's the only one we've got, Aaron countered, and time is running out. After a tense silence, Hall nodded curtly. I can provide limited support. Unofficial, only a small team, equipment and intelligence on the research facile layout. That's all we need, Aaron assured him. Coordinates are being transmitted. Now meet my team at the location in 6 hours. Holt's expression softened marginally. And James, watch your back. The Chronos Guild doesn't give up easily. The transmission ended, leaving them in silence. You didn't tell me about this stone transformation technique, Aaron said quietly. Sarah touched his face gently. Because I knew you would worry, but it's temporary and controlled, nothing like what Vexes did to me. And if something goes wrong, if you get stuck again, the fear in his voice was palp. Then you'll find me, she said simply. You did it once before. Aaron pulled her close, burying his face in her silver hair. I can't lose you, not, and I've just found you in my 30 years as Stone. I witnessed countless human interactions, Sarah murmured against his chest. I saw love, betrayal, indifference, but never did I see the kind of connection we forged in mere days. Is that what this is, love? Aaron asked, the word feeling both foreign and perfectly right on his tongue. Sarah smiled up at him. The Vix have a different word, soul binding. When two energies intertwine so completely, they can never truly be separated, even across dimensions. I like the sound of that, Aaron admitted, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. Then trust in it, she urged. Trust that whatever form I take, whatever distance separates us, I will find my way back to you. Their lips met in a kiss that held both promise and farewell, knowing that the coming hours would test the bond they'd formed in ways neither could fully anticipate. As they prepared the ship for the rendezvous with Holt's team, Sarah began the meditative preparations for her transformation, while Aaron modified his weapons for the infiltration mission. You know, he said, attempting to lighten the mood. Most couples have dinner dates. We're planning to infiltrate a high-security research facility and turn you back into a statue. Laughter echoed through the cabin. Would you prefer something more conventional, Aaron? James, his answering smile was all the response she needed. Yeah, for a man who had spent his life seeking adventure across the stars, finding someone who matched his appetite for risk was the rarest treasure of all. The abandoned temple on Proxima 4 provided the perfect setting for Sarah's transformation. Ritual ancient stone columns supported a partially collapsed dome, allowing starlight to filter through like silver rain. Commander Holt's Team 3 hardened Alliance operatives maintained a perimeter, while Aaron helped Sarah prepare. These symbols need to form a perfect circle, Sarah instructed, guiding Aaron's hand as he traced luminescent patterns on the stone floor. Her touch lingered longer than necessary, both of them acutely aware that these might be their last moments together before their dangerous gambit began. You're sure this will work? Aaron asked, not for the first time. Sarah's smile held gentle patience. The calcification process is controlled by my consciousness, unlike Vex's force transformation. I'll maintain awareness and control, and I'll be able to reverse it just by touching you. Your touch broke Vex's spell because of our connection, our anara. She explained. This ritual acknowledges that bond. Your energy signature is woven into the transformation matrix. Aaron raised an eyebrow. So I'm literally your off switch, Sarah laughed, the sound echoing through the ancient chamber. The Vix would say you're my anchor to the physical realm. Much more poetic, he conceded, as the ritual preparations neared completion. Sarah removed her jumpsuit, standing naked in the center of the symbol circle. Aaron's breath caught at the sight of her violet skin gleaming in the starlight. The transformation must begin. With the body unbound, she explained, nodding his reaction with a knowing smile. Does my form still affect you so strongly, even after our night together? More so, Aaron admitted, his voice rougher than intended, knowing what lies beneath the surface only makes the view more spectacular. Sarah's eyes darkened with desire. When this is over, Aaron promised, and we'll need at least a week of privacy. She reached for him, pulling him into the circle for a kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't. Fear, hope, passion, and the promise of return. Aaron's hands traced the curves he'd memorized the night before, committing the warmth of her skin to memory. Commander James called a voice from outside. Perimeter secure. Infiltration team is ready for final briefing. Aaron reluctantly broke the kiss. Duty calls go, Sarah urged. The sooner you leave, the sooner you return. He stepped back, watching as she knelt in the center of the circle and began a melodic chant in the ancient Vix language. The symbols around her pulsed with increasing brightness, responding to her voice. I'll be back before you know it, Aaron promised, backing toward the temple entrance. Sarah's eyes met his one last time, filled with complete trust. I know. As he reached the doorway, a soft glow enveloped her form. Her violet skin began to harden, taking on a stone-like appearance that spread from her feet upward, unlike the crude imprisonment Vexus had forced upon her. This transformation was beautiful, her expression serene, her posture graceful. The last thing to calcify was her face, her lips curved in a slight smile meant only for him, and then she was stone once more, a perfect statue, gleaming with faint internal light, the only evidence that consciousness remained within Aaron. Approached slowly, fighting the urge to touch her immediately and break the spell they'd worked so hard to create. Instead, he placed a gentle kiss on her stone lips. "I'll come back for you," he whispered. "I promise." 2 hours later, Aaron crouched in the ventilation shaft above. Vex's research facility commander, Holt's voice crackling in his earpiece guards. Changing in 30 seconds, remember James' evidence, gathering only no heroics copy. That Aaron replied, though they both knew his track record with following orders was spotty at best. The facility sprawled. Beneath him, like a metallic labyrinth, scientists, in white coats, moving between. Workstations with the precision of ants at the center, stood a massive device, a ring-shaped structure that pulsed with ominous energy. "That's it," whispered Kara. The tech specialist on Holt's team, the Nexus key prototype. Aaron nodded grimly. "Looks operational, not quite," Kara replied. "Cons in her scanner energy signature shows it's still unstable, missing the final catalyst, Sarah's blood," Aaron muttered. Approaching the entry point, announced Dex, the infiltration expert from another section of the ventilation system, on. Checked his chronosynchronize in 3-2-1. They moved with practiced efficiency, dropping into separate sections of the facility during a precisely timed gap in the security sensors. Aaron landed silently in a storage area, immediately pressing himself against a wall as a guard passed. His objective was the central database, where Vexus would keep records of the weapon capabilities and intended targets. Kara would gather technical specifications from the prototype itself, while Dex secured their escape route. Aaron navigated through the facility like a shadow, his years of covert operations serving him well. He reached the database access point without incident, planting the specialized encryption device had provided. "I'm in," he whispered into his comm, downloading files. Now what he saw made his blood run cold. The Nexus key wasn't just a weapon, it was a dimensional ripper, designed to tear holes between realities. Vexus planned to use it first on Earth, viewing humanity's rapid expansion into space as the greatest threat to his power. That son of a Aaron hissed, "What is it?" Holt's voice demanded in his ear. "Vexus isn't just building a weapon, he's planning genocide, starting with Earth." A sudden commotion from the main laboratory interrupted their exchange. Alarms blared as security doors slammed shut. "Throughout the facility, we've been compromised," Dex reported tensely. "Someone triggered a silent alarm. Abort mission." Hall ordered, "Get out now." Aaron hesitated, watching as the download completed. "Almost done, James." "That's an order." The facility doors burst open as armed guards flooded in. A scientist ass scattered, some diving under workstations for cover. "Too late," Aaron reported, drawing his blaster. "Going to plan B." "There is no plan B," Holt shouted. Aaron grinned despite the danger. "There's always a plan B." He fired at the ceiling sprinklers, triggering the emergency containment protocols. As expected, the automated systems interpreted the water as a potential contamination risk, initiating a facility-wide lockdown that sealed even the guards out of the sensitive areas. "Kara, status," Aaron called. Sprinting toward the prototype chamber. "Got what we need," she confirmed. "But we're sealed in." "Not for long," Aaron promised up. Reaching the laboratory doors, what he saw inside froze him in place. The Nexus key prototype was powering up, its central ring beginning to rotate. Someone activated it remotely, Kara said, frantically working at a control panel. "I can't shut it down." The air within the ring shimmered, distorting like heat waves above desert sand. Through the growing distortion, Aaron glimpsed another world, a twisted, wrong version of reality. If that portal stabilizes, Kara warned, it'll start tearing apart the dimensional barriers. Without the proper catalyst to control it, it'll keep expanding until it consumes everything. Aaron finished. "Can we destroy it?" Kara Nodded grimly the power core, but we'd never survive the explosion. Aaron thought of Sarah waiting in stone form, trusting him to return. He thought of Earth, unaware of the threat bearing down upon it. Get decks and get out. He ordered, I'll handle this, Aeon. That's an order, specialist. Get the data to halt. As Kara reluctantly retreated, Aaron approached the pulsing machine, blaster in hand. The portal within the ring was growing more stable by the second, the wrongness of the dimension beyond it making his skin crawl. Sorry, Sarah, he murmured. Might be a bit late for that reunion he aimed at. The power core finger tightening on the trigger when a familiar voice stopped him cold. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Human. Aaron turned slowly to find himself face to face with High Chancellor Vexus himself, tall, regal, with eyes like frozen amber. Behind him stood a contingent of elite guards. You're too late, Vexus said with cold satisfaction. The key is activating soon. I'll reshape reality itself without the final catalyst. Aaron challenged. Your machine is unstable. Something in Vexus' smile made Aaron's blood run cold. Who said I don't have the catalyst? The Celestian gestured to his guards, who parted to reveal a hovering transport platform. On it lay a stone figure, identical to the one Aaron had left safely hidden in the temple. Sarah, time seemed to slow as Aaron stared at the stone figure of Sarah. Something wasn't right. The posture was different from how he left her. The expression lacking the subtle smile she'd given him before transforming. Impressive replica, Aaron said, playing for time. Is his mind raised, but not quite perfect? Vex's confident smile faltered slightly. You think I wouldn't recognize my own handiwork? This is the same troublesome woman I imprisoned 30 years ago. Then you won't mind if I verify, Aaron replied, taking a deliberate step toward the stone figure. The guards raised their weapons, but Vexus held up a hand. Let him, it will change nothing. Aaron approached slowly, aware of the destabilizing portal growing behind him. The Nexus key's hum had risen to a painful whne, the dimensional tier widening with each passing second. He reached out, fingers hovering just above the stone figure's hand, exactly where he'd first touched Sarah in the palace. If this was truly her, transformed by her own ritual, his touch would awaken her. His fingers made contact with cold, lifeless stone. Nothing happened. Relief flooded through him. This wasn't Sarah, just an ordinary statue, crafted to look like her. The real Sarah was still safely hidden at the temple. Disappointed Vexus mocked. Did you think your primitive human touch held some magical power? Aaron turned to face him, newfound confidence straightening his spine. I think you're desperate. Your weapon unstable, and you don't have the real catalyst. Fury flashed across Vex's aristocratic features. It doesn't matter. The process has begun. The dimensional tier will continue to grow until it consumes your pathetic Earth, with or without perfect stability. The portal behind them pulsed ominously, its edges fraying as reality itself began to warp. Equipment around the laboratory started to levitate, drawn toward the dimensional rift. You'll destroy this facility too, pointed out, along with yourself, a necessary sacrifice for ultimate power, Vexus declared, though Aaron noted the nervous glances his guards exchanged. That's when Aaron saw it, the subtle movement among the guards, one of them standing slightly apart from the others, caught his eye with a barely perceptible not a flash of lilac beneath the helmet visor. Sarah, understanding surged through Aaron. Somehow she'd broken her own transformation and infiltrated the facility disguised as one of Vex's guards. The statue was indeed a decoy, one they'd placed at the temple after she reverted to flesh. He needed to distract Vexus long enough for her to act. You know what I don't understand, Aaron said conversationally, as if they weren't standing beside a reality-destroying machine. Why stone? Why not just kill her 30 years ago? Vass's eyes narrowed at the unexpected question. Death would have been too simple, too final. I wanted her to witness my triumph, eternally conscious, yet unable to interfere. Pretty elaborate revenge for rejected research funding, Aaron commented. She didn't reject funding, Vexus snarled. She rejected me. My proposal of union. No one refuses the House of Vexus. Behind him, the disguised Sarah moves silently into position. So this whole doomsday weapon, Aaron continued, is basically because you couldn't handle being turned down for a date. That's actually kind of pathetic, Vexes. Composure shattered. Guards, execute this human. Immediately in that moment of chaos, Sarah struck. She drove a neural disruptor into the back of Vexus, his neck, sending him crumpling to the floor. The other guards, momentarily confused by the betrayal in their ranks, hesitated, just long enough for Aaron to draw his blaster. The NEX is key, Sarah shouted, tearing off her helmet to reveal her face. We have to destabilize it manually. Aaron fired at the nearest guard, while Sarah sprinted to the control panel. The dimensional portal was now large enough to see an entire twisted landscape, beyond a corrupted version of their reality where physics itself seemed wrong. The containment field is failing, Sarah called over the rising whine of the machine. We need to reverse the polarity before the tier becomes self-sustaining. Aaron fought his way to her side, providing cover fire as she worked in basic pleas. We need to make it implode rather than explode. She translated, fingers flying over the controls. But I need access to the primary core. Aaron glanced at the heavily shielded center of the device. Let me guess through that, yes. And quickly, with a nod, Aaron charged toward the core, housing, dodging energy bolts from the remaining guards. The dimensional distortion made movement unpredictable, gravity shifting time, stretching and compressing erratically. He reached the housing and planted the explosive charges Dex had provided for their escape fire in the hole. The explosion ripped through the protective shielding, exposing the glowing heart of the Nexus key. Sarah immediately began rerouting power through her control panel, her face intense with concentration. Whatever you're doing, do it faster, Aaron shouted, as the portal expanded suddenly, nearly engulfing one of the guards, who screamed as his arm briefly passed through the dimensional chair, returning withered and wrong, almost there's Sarah's voice, strained with effort. When I give the signal, I need you to fire directly into the core. Aaron aimed his blaster, waiting for her command, as chaos erupted around them. Equipment crashed against walls, guards fled in panic, and Vexus began to stir from his neural shock. Now, Sarah shouted. Aaron fired 3 precise shots into the exposed core. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the portal began to contract, folding in on itself like a collapsing star. Run, Sarah grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the exit, as the Nexus key imploded, drawing in everything nearby. With crushing force, they sprinted through the facility, the destructive wave following close behind. Aaron caught a glimpse of Vexus being pulled inexorably toward the collapsing portal, his face a mask of hatred and disbelief, before he vanished into the dimensional void. They burst through the final door. Just as the implosion reached critical mass, the shock wave threw them forward. Aaron instinctively wrapping his body around Sarah's to shield her as they hit the ground. Then, silence. Aaron opened his eyes to find Sarah beneath him, her lilac eyes wide and alive, her silver hair SBL across the ground like liquid moonlight. Did we just? He began. Save Earth and destroy a dimensional weapon while eliminating a tyrant S. Finished. Yes, I believe we did. A slow grin spread across Aaron's face. Not bad for a statue. And a tourist. Her laughter was the sweetest sound he'd ever heard. 3 weeks later, the Nomad drifted lazily in orbit around a pristine, uninhabited planet. The Andromeda sector, inside Aaron and Sarah, lay entwined in the captain's quarters, basking in the afterglow of Their latest passionate encounter, the Alliance Council, wants to give you a medal Aaron murmured against Sarah's. Violet Shoulder Holt says they're creating a special advisory position for interspecies scientific cooperation. And what did you tell them, Sarah asked, tracing patterns on his chest. That you're considering all offers, he replied. With a grin, after an extended vacation, Sarah propped herself up on one elbow, her silver hair cascading over them, both. And what about you, Aaron James, the famous hero who saved reality itself? I'm exactly where I want to be, he said, simply pulling her closer. The truth was, after years of wandering the stars alone, Aaron had finally found his home, not in a place, but in a person, a remarkable violet-skinned woman who had spent 30 years as a statue, until his touch set her free, Sarah said. Thoughtfully, Vic's tradition holds that when two souls find their perfect match across the vastness of space and time, they are bound together for eternity. I can live with that, Aaron replied, kissing her softly outside the viewport A. Shooting starstreak across the alien sky, one world among countless others in A. universe they had saved together.